Chair now recognizes Ms. Brown from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is one topic where we can all agree our power grids are critical to the nation. Unfortunately, the grid is under threat from multiple directions. Climate change is straining our aging grid and stressing the system during increasing heat, cold, and other extreme weather systems. In the worst case scenario, grid failures can mean no air conditioning during a heat wave, no lights during a late night thunderstorm, or a skyrocketing heat bill in the winter. As a member of the Select Committee on Strategic Competition with the Chinese Communist Party, I have also heard firsthand about the CCP's hacks of our electric grids and the danger it poses on our national security. And echoing Ranking Member Bush, the power grid has become a new target for domestic extremists attempting to destabilize our country and foster fear and chaos, particularly in the Black community. This is absolutely unacceptable, and I applaud the Department of Justice for holding these bad actors accountable. The Biden-Harris administration and Democrats in the 117th Congress made unprecedented and historic investments in our nation's power grid by passing laws like the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act. These laws provided billions of dollars for hardening the grid against severe weather, preventing electricity outages, and promoting green energy infrastructure. So turning to you, Mr. Munkin, how would you characterize the impact of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law's nearly $15 billion electric grid reliability, resilience, and cybersecurity investment?
Frankly, it's transformative. So essentially, it provided a level of funding that had not been seen previously when it comes to making targeted investments that directly support the types of grid reliability and critical infrastructure availability that we're discussing in the panel here today. So being able to make that type of investment is foundational to making sure that not only are we successfully making the clean energy transition, but we're also trying to put the infrastructure and security measures in place to really avoid the types of worst-case outcomes that we're describing here. So it's an essential contributor to what we need to do.
Thank you. And Mr. Munkin, how do you see these Biden-Harris investments in our energy grid lowering costs for all of us in the long term and promoting a cleaner environment?
Yeah, the low-cost component of this, I think, is central to the discussion because it really needs to be emphasized that when we're talking about what is the most competitive and what is the lowest cost form of electricity generation, it's really stabilizing investments in those particular areas. So it really is going to have a stabilizing effect overall across the country on making sure that we have affordable and clean power. It also really sets the conditions for success of being able to make the scale of investment in infrastructure like high voltage transmission that can continue to lower overall costs for consumers across the country.
Thank you. And lastly, Mr. Munkin, how do problems with our energy grid disproportionately harm low-income and Black and brown communities? And how does Biden's Justice 40 initiative to ensure 40% of benefits from federal investment reach marginalized communities come into play?
It's really central to what needs to be done when we look for long-term reliability of the grid, recognizing that when we look at areas with really either low economic activity or disproportionately affected communities that are harmed by these severe weather events that we see, those are populations that do not have the independent financial means to be able to just address these on their own. So while people that have the economic means can either move out of the area or go somewhere else, or they can buy an expensive generator or a set of solar panels to put on their house or a battery to put on their house that's not readily available in the open market. These are communities that can't go and do those types of things. So trying to understand what needs to be done proactively to address that in advance of an event that has that type of disproportionate effect is essential to making sure that we don't have to deal with it after the fact, after the people that lost that reliable power suffer as a result.
And thank you so much. The Biden-Harris administration is making the largest ever investment in our nation's power grid, thanks to the funding from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act. These investments all across the country are protecting the grid from climate change and advancing equity for Black and brown communities. And with that, I yield back.